Welcome to another episode of The Real Paul Show, where artists share their heart about their passion for what they do. Take a moment to look over the episode's description to familiarize yourself with available links, as they will be mentioned throughout the podcast. And now, here's your host, Paul Weiss.
Hey y'all, and welcome to The Real Paul Show. This week I have my very own choir director from Lee Boulevard Baptist Church here in Lehigh Acres, where I'm based, and we discuss with Ron his life in music. It started as a kid and went into Navy band, and from there went to choir directing at multiple churches. And even on the side, he goes and plays with a band at different restaurants and other live venues. So I want to take a moment before we get into his story and just thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being excited about this show being here. I really appreciate it. One favor that I would like to ask you about that I've been learning about by listening to other podcasters as well, if you would please, just whatever app you're listening to this podcast on, rate my podcast. Rate my podcast, follow it, and what happens is that helps me get out there. Also, share the podcast. If you know someone who loves music as much as you do and as much as I do, then I think that it would be great to share it out and to put it on your social media. I am solely relying on word of mouth. Whatever I get on donations goes right back into the podcast for equipment, for subscriptions of things that I may need to help improve the quality of the podcast. So that's a lot of talking that I've been doing. So let's go ahead and move on. This show is a little long. It's just under an hour. And yeah, so enjoy the show. Enjoy listening to Ron. It does get a little bit more out of music talk towards the beginning, but bear with it. It's something that I couldn't edit out for respect to Ron for serving our country and doing what he does. And the stories that he tells are actually very fascinating, and I believe that we all can enjoy this. So here we go. Ron, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I am Ron Burton. I'm retired, a bivocational musician most of my life. Don't know how much of I could go for a half an hour on a description of life story, but I don't think you want that. Currently the part-time interim bivocational choir director at Lee Boulevard Baptist Church. Been part-time now for over 3 years. I don't think they're looking for anybody, but it wouldn't hurt me because I'm retired if they found somebody. Nonetheless, doing God's work and trying to lead a choir. That's current events.
Mm-hmm. And you're also, aren't you part of a band?
Yes and no. Due to some artistic differences, the band has broke up just last week.
Oh, wow.
I'm still playing. It's not a six-piece band anymore. It's three-piece. Every one of us is well into retirement, and some guys just didn't want to work as much as we had been. So they decided to seriously bow down and retire.
Okay. One of the first questions that I like to start out with is, what is it about music that fascinated you enough to draw you in? Was it somebody who inspired you? Was it something, what was it about the music that drew you in?
I completely understand the question, and boy, does that go back a long, long way. Parents were musically inclined, specifically my mother. and I'm presuming I inherited her gene. She started me out playing piano at age 5. I got disinterested in the length of time for practice, so I decided I would jumped from piano after a couple of years and her instructions to play drums. So I took up drums, and basically after a few months was teaching myself, because they didn't want a drummer in the house. It was for sure. And from there into high school, well, actually in what used to be called junior high, which was 6th grade. Middle school now. A band director from the high school came over, and he was recruiting members for future admission to the high school band. And this was in Indiana. And for people who are snowbirds or lived up north, you realize that about half the year it was not conducive to be outside like it is down here. So what would you do inside but play an instrument? Mm-hmm. So the band director came over, and I remember his name today was Sawyer. I remember how peculiar he was, because he never smoked, but he chewed a big cigar all the time. That was his vice, and certainly turned out to be a tremendous encouragement to practice, because once he figured out what instrument he wanted me to play in the senior band, he gave lessons. And if I hadn't done my practicing and the lesson was not going well, he would take the instrument, and yes, it was a tuba. He would take the tuba and show me how to play it. When I got the mouthpiece back, all I could taste, smell, and feel were particles of that cigar in the mouthpiece. Only it happened a couple of times, and boy, did I learn to practice my lesson. Anyway, by the end of the 7th grade, I had progressed to the point where he drafted me into the high school band and made me immediately the second tuba player, only because the other guy in front of me was a junior. And he'd been there for a while, but basically I was playing parts that he was playing, but I was apparently doing them better. So after a year there, he made me, what a distinction to be called first tuba. I mean, what does that mean to anybody but the guy playing tuba? Actually, it means nothing to anybody. So after a couple of years in Indiana, and this particular director was seriously involved in the classic. We did all of the concert music that you could think of that a high school band would do. And we did it well. And I got introduced to most all of the classical directors, arrangers, writers, composers through him. And we put on a couple of pretty good concerts, I would say. Then my parents decided to move to Florida, and this was 1959. That gives you an idea how old I am. So in 59, we moved to Miami. Lots of reasons why, but anyway, we're in Miami, and I'm enrolling in a new school, and they said, were you in any extracurricular activities? And I said, band. And they sent me right down the hall to this Italian fellow named Greco. Gene Greco. Now, as much as the Indiana director was into classical, Mr. Greco was into pop. And he was a tremendous pianist. He worked at some of the hotels on Miami Beach as a second job, made good money at it. He probably did backup playing for some of the larger names back then that used to be in Miami on Collins Avenue, South Beach. Anyway, so now I'm doing pop music and marching band. Miami and all the schools in the South, of course, were more into football still then. And we marched. And for as small as a band as we were, we only had 48 members. We marched in Orange Bowl parades, in pro football games. We did the halftime for the Detroit Lions versus Miami Dolphins back in 1961. Wow. If I'm not mistaken. And at other times, he started me on playing string bass. So I'm playing tuba and the bull fiddle, as some people down here might call it. And with that knowledge, we played sometimes behind him in a combo, 3, 4, 5 pieces. And we started our own band in high school. And we played for some of the school dances and other parties around. And I was playing string bass at the time. Electric bass was coming into it was around, but there weren't too many electric bass players. So I decided that this was cool. I'm playing the big fiddle and having a ball, and then graduated and did not know what I was going to do with life. And then the big change came. So all of this, getting back to the original question, that's how music has always been in my blood. Genetically, I believe. And the one that started it on me is my mother. Dad was never too encouraging. Why don't you get a job that's going to make a living, kind of a thing. Do something important. He was an accountant, so that explained that. And I knew he didn't like the drums in the house. But at that point, life began to change dramatically. I graduated, went to work at an auto dealership, changing oil and minor maintenance work, putting in brake pads and cars and so forth. Not too hard on 1962 and 63 model automobiles. So what happened in 1962? Right after I graduated was the Cuban boat lift and the October situation with Cuba and its missiles. Being free and easy and not having a whole lot of responsibility at that time, I was on the beach in Miami. Hollover Beach, actually, was the name of it, just north of South Beach. And the fact was I was asleep on the beach after a night of revelry on Miami Beach. Again, I was a teenager. So I woke up and I looked out on the horizon and there was a lot of smoke. And I thought, well, that's unusual. And so I laid back down, put my hat over my face, and probably 20, 30 minutes later, I decided the sun was getting too hot. So I woke up again and looked out, and there was what looked to me like the entire United States 7th Fleet heading south, just a mile offshore. I mean, they were cruising, carriers, destroyers, cruiser. And I thought, whoa, something's going on. So by the time I got back to my car and turned on the radio, I found out we had invaded Cuba. Mm-hmm. And by the time I got home, I decided that I was going to join the Navy. That was a 15-minute drive. So I ran into the house and hollered, have you seen the news? This was a weekend. They said, isn't it terrible? I said, yeah, I'm going to join the Navy. Well, that didn't sit well with Mother. Dad said, finally, you can get out of the house and get a job, do something beneficial. And that was great. So the following Monday, Dad took me to the recruiter's office, and I'm sitting there filling out forms. And he said, what would you like to do? I don't know. Well, what did you do in high school? I said, I was in the band. And he looked at me and said, well, would you like to join the Navy band? Yeah, why not? Hey, that's right up my alley. Right. And I don't have to have a gun, more or less. So the recruiter started filling out the papers, and this was in October. So he said, where were you born? And I said, Subiaco, Australia. And he just put his pencil down and said, are you a citizen? I said, I guess. I've been here since I was 3. Dad got married overseas after the Battle of the Coral Sea. And after the war ended, he came and Mom followed with me. She was not a citizen. And for 50 more years, she signed a green card every year at the post office until she finally became a citizen. But I figured I was naturalized. Well, the Navy didn't buy that. So he put his pencil down and said, well, we're going to have to do a background check and we'll let you know. Well, 3 months later, roughly 4 months, March, they called and said, you're clear. They went and checked both my parents' background, a couple of generations back. They went to Australia, interviewed all my relatives on Mom's side back there, and made sure everybody was not a communist or whatever it was. And yeah, it took them over 4 months to do it. So it was pretty thorough. And the guy said, here's the deal. We'll fly you to Chicago and you can audition. If you've passed the audition, you have the opportunity. We'll give you a choice. You can stay, go through boot camp, and we'll send you to the Naval School of Music, which was at that time in Washington, D.C. I said, And if I fail, well, you still have two choices. You can stay, you'll find a new occupation, or we'll send you back home and you can wait for the draft. And at that point in time, Vietnam was beginning to heat up. This was early Vietnam. So I said, hey, good idea. Give me the plane ticket. So I got to Chicago. I'm in Miami now, and I've got white khaki pants, a white windbreaker, not lined, and short sleeve shirts, like a little pullover, and boat shoes. I got off the plane in Chicago with 1.5 feet of driving snow, 0 degrees temperature. That was a wake-up call. Anyway, we got on the bus, and we made it to the Naval Air Station, North Great Lakes Naval Training Station. And it was early in the morning hours. We went to bed. There's your bed, which were 4 stacked racks, and a blanket and a pillow about 1 inch thick. Everybody was exhausted. We all found a place to sleep, and it didn't seem like it was 10 minutes later. Some guy comes running through the barracks with a giant glass Coke bottle and an empty garbage can, just running that thing around the garbage can, making as much noise as he could and hollering for all of us boots to get up, using other choice words. And, well, I sat up that quickly, and I thought, what in the heck have I done? Why? So we collected what we had brought with us, which wasn't much. They told us not to bring a lot of personal items. They would be provided, and they did. But for now, all I had was that white windbreaker, and we stepped out into the tarmac, headed for a building about 300 yards away, which is supposed to be the mess hall. The snow was about 2 feet deep. This was lake effect snow off of Canada and the Great Lakes. And again, somewhere between 0 and 10, I believe. We got to know our neighbor real good because it was cold and the line was about 50 feet outside the door when we got there. So we're another 50 feet behind. But boy, the guys were moving through that door as quickly as they could. And the door was never closed, and you could smell the food, and we were starving by that time.
And now, a brief message from Ophelia on how you can contribute to the podcast.
If you enjoyed what you heard here, please consider supporting the podcast with a monthly contribution. To contribute, just click the link in the description of this episode or visit The Real Paul Show on Anchor FM.
I'd like to say a thank you for my contributors, and I would like to welcome you guys to contribute as well. You can click the link in the description of this podcast and donate $1, $5, or $10 a month. You can also do a one-time donation by going to trps.us/podcast. And I have on there available for you to donate on Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo. Thanks in advance for your contribution.
This is a side story that I frequently recall in my own head. I had never seen so much food in my life. I mean, the buffet table looked to be 200 feet long. There were 4 or 5 guys under giant grills as big as this table who were cooking eggs to order. And you just said whether you wanted them scrambled, whatever. They were ready to cook. These guys were good. What did you want in them? Mushrooms. What kind of mushroom? On and on. Mounds of toast and sweet rolls and bacon by the bushel. Just amazing. And a whole bunch of fruit. We could eat what we wanted, when we wanted, as much as we wanted, as long as we did it in 30 minutes. So we had lunch, and then we went back to the barracks, and they started telling us what was going to happen, what our schedule is going to be. You're going to here, you're going to there. Burton, you're going to this building for your audition today. I haven't thawed out yet. So I went over, and there were 3 people, and they had this sousaphone set up and a bunch of music on a stand. And they said, turn to such and such, play the bass part. And to this day, I praise God for the fact that I had Sawyer in Indiana, because these were all classics and we had done them.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, try this march, Stars and Stripes Forever. Everything that Gene Greco had done in Miami was in front of me again. Mm-hmm. The bass parts. I said, okay, now let's do some sight reading. And they pulled something else out. Again, it was a piece that I'd done years before, played with a band before. They said, okay, you're in. You go to the Naval School of Music if you wish.
Wow.
I said, sign me up. So 8 months later, it's October of 1963, Kennedy is shot and killed. And that was probably the most dramatic moment in my life, because now I'm in Washington, D.C. After finishing boot camp, they shipped me to Washington. And within the first month, Kennedy is shot. So I was made part of the cordon for all of the events leading up to Arlington Cemetery. Stood at attention and salute for probably 4 hours as 90% of the world's leaders passed within 10 feet of. I was thinking, oh, there's Haile Selassie. There's, what's his name? Ishaq Rabin. Here comes the Speaker of the House. And I'm sitting there, at attention. Right at the gate of Arlington. Got that over with and got back to the barracks, and everybody's relaxed. We've graduated from the school in a couple of months later. I'm skipping ahead. And I said, well, you're now graduates of the Naval School of Music. And really in that 9 months that I was there, that was, in my opinion, the equivalent of 2 to 3 years of intensive music education at any college. It was 8 hours a day, plus your practice time on your own. And we went through concert and combo and big band and solo and ensembles and so forth and so on.
Wow.
And it was 5 days a week. And then on Saturday, what did we do for fun? We'd go play. Find a place that needed a band, or just show up, and when a band was taking a break, we'd say, hey, can we play? Not getting paid, didn't earn anything for it. So the guy comes in and says, well, you're graduated. We're going to give you 3 choices and where you want to go, and we're going to try and get you to one of those 3. Write them down and let us know. So I wrote down, I want to go to the band in Naples, Italy. I'd like to go to the band in Corpus Christi, Texas. I'd like to go to the band in, believe it or not, there was one at the Naval Air Station, Chattanooga, Tennessee. I said, I'd like to go to Chattanooga. 2 days later, Burton, here's your orders. You get on a plane to San Diego and get on the USS Yorktown. You're going to the South China Sea in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. So, okay, I'm in it's an 18-piece, what they call a unit band, and we did it all. We marched, we did concerts, we did, and I've got pictures to show. We did big band performances. We played all the charts of Glenn Miller and Dorsey and Artie Shaw. These were excellent musicians for the most part. And when we were at sea, all we did was practice. And in the afternoon, we'd send a combo, which would be the guitar or piano, bass, me, a drummer, and either a trumpet, trombone, and sax, or any combination of the 3. They'd all go down to the officers' mess and play for the officers of the ship and the pilots. We had just come from our mess hall and had chipped beef on toast. We go down there and look at New York strips and king crab and think, whoa, these guys sure eat well. And once in a while, because the kitchen crew really enjoyed us being down there playing, they would always shelter a little bit of that food on the side. When we had to leave or the officers left, we'd sit down and have another meal that was really top notch. That was a big benefit we considered. So we did, okay, I'm at sea for a year on the Yorktown. We come back to San Diego. We got a month off, and then I was given orders to go to the USS Hornet, back to the South China Sea for another year. And different band, a whole bunch of different musicians, different director, different music. We did the same thing. We visited Yokosuka, Tokyo, Sasebo, Nagasaki, Subic Bay, Olongapo in the Philippines, which doesn't exist anymore because Mount Pinatubo buried it 12 feet under. Korea, and probably another place that I don't even remember. And then we took a trip to Australia. And that's the only place I got into trouble. I asked my band director, I had relatives in Sydney that I'd never seen before, and he knew I was from Australia. I've got a picture. When we were coming in to the harbor at Sydney, there was a news photographer and a reporter from the Sydney Times, the newspaper, and they found out that there was somebody on board from Australia. And they took my picture holding the tuba, anything but that, and put an article in the paper, so-and-so, and it was returning to his homeland, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So I asked the director, I said, I've got to look up these relatives. Can I have an overnight? Sure. Okay. Well, he didn't have the authority to give me an overnight pass.
Oh, no.
So as of the next morning, I was AWOL. I had to go before the captain and explain myself, which was the only time I was really worried about my future in the Navy. Where were you, son? Yes, sir. I was born in this country and I had relatives. I told him the whole story. He gave me a pass. He said, okay, as long as you had your director's approval, we'll overlook it this time. But a stern talking to, probably a letter of reprimand I never saw in my service jacket. But they did give me an honorable discharge later. Anyway, got back from the cruise overseas, got to San Diego, got new orders to go to Seattle. And that was to join with a pay increase and a rank increase. I got promoted to what would be sergeant in the Army. It is now E5, petty officer in the Navy. Up to another band, another 18, 19-piece band, shore-based for a year. And we flew and did concerts as far as Boise, Idaho, Spokane, down to Oregon, and even to San Francisco, which was the scariest time of my naval career. We were in a DC-3, what we call the mosquito plane here now, was flying then. There weren't any seats. You sat along the side on what looked like a piece of fishnet. And when we got to the field in Sacramento, when the plane touched down, we felt, boom, you feel the tires hit the ground. And the co-pilot comes running down the aisle, grabs a fire extinguisher, jumps out and puts the left engine out. We didn't know how long it had been burning, if it done any damage or what. And we're all looking at each other, and the idiocy of a 21-year-old sailor in the Navy, if the band flies together, dies together, kind of a thing. Dark humor. So we got off the plane and we're looking at this burnt cowling around the engine. And the co-pilot says, don't worry, we'll have it ready to go back in a couple hours. We were flying back in the same plane. Apparently just an oil leak, and the oil caught fire. The engine was burning, but it wasn't doing any serious damage. So we flew back. We did not want to get back on that plane, but we did. We were designed to do things like that.
Okay, it's time for another quick break where we tell you how you can have your questions or comments aired on the show.
If you'd like to record a question or comment to possibly be aired on a future podcast, just click the message link in the description of this episode or visit the Real Paul Show podcast on Anchor FM.
Just another brief method for you to leave a voice comment to be aired on the show. Just simply call 561-342-1761. That number again is 571-342-1761.
Got my tour of duty done in 4 years, a month, and 1 day. I had to extend 1 month over my 4-year initial sign-up in order to get the E5 designation and the pay increase. A month didn't mean that much. I was really fortunate. I had a great career. I had great people that I wish I could find some of them today. I only know where one of them is that I served with. The Yorktown is at Patriots Point in Charleston, South Carolina. And the Hornet is over in Long Beach in California. And there are copies of the ship's log showing all of the personnel that served during a particular year. And my name is right there as part of what they called the flag, which means the band was not assigned to the ship's crew. It was assigned to the admiral on board. Wherever the admiral went, we went. Wow. Whether it was a christening of a new ship, a change of command of a ship, a special event that we're supposed to be part of. And then sometimes we go to hospitals, orphanages, and schools and play concerts. I have pictures of all of that. Anyway, got out of the Navy, played still in small bands around Seattle, went to work in a completely different field in finance. Got transferred to Jacksonville, Florida, got transferred to Rome, Georgia, got transferred to Gadsden, Alabama, where I stayed for almost 30 years, and finally back home. The prodigal son returned to Florida, and here I am in Fort Myers today. Served 7 churches for over 35 years as the part-time, temporary choir director, and that designation was my choice because I knew when somebody who was seminary trained, musically perhaps further ahead of me as far as choir goes, would come in, and if the situation was warranted, I'd say to the pastor, that man is my replacement. Go talk to him. And most of them said, no, we're happy with you. But eventually I knew they would come back and say, Ron, I'm sorry, but he can also serve as the assistant pastor and youth director. So we're getting 3 in 1 for a salary not much more than what we're paying you now. So we're going to replace you. And I say, that's great. Within a month, and sometimes less than 2 weeks, another church would call me, and I was on my way to serve another church. And like I said, I've served 7 of them. The longest one was 15 years at Central Baptist in downtown Fort Myers.
And that was a temporary position?
That was temporary. Well, this one's been temporary so far, and it's already been 5 years, believe it or not. Well, over 3 and going on 4. 5, I count the sound booth as...
Officially, yeah, because I remember I got here 2 years ago, I think it was. And that's when I think that you were like officially, right? Yeah.
When Gerald left, actually Christmas 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Yeah. So that's my career in a very long nutshell. And the musical background has stuck with me. I'm playing in a band now. We just played last night. We did a session, a couple of hours over at the Bay Point Yacht and Tennis Club. Nice place, great folks. We had a ball. We played for 2 hours straight, did all kinds of music, country, pop, Western, comedy, novelty tunes, even a little polka every once in a while. It's just something we enjoy doing. We don't ask a lot of money. For most places, we just put out a tip bucket. And we're happy with that. I get enough money for gas.
So that brings me to something, you enjoy the music. What is it that music does for you personally?
I'm in another world, even if I'm playing bass and I'm not doing anything melody-wise or lead by any case. My job, as I look at it and as I was trained, is that I'm part of the rhythm section. My job is to keep the tempo and not get lost. But it does make me forget that I've got a credit card payment coming up. I don't realize I'm hungry until I stop, and then I look at my wife and say, I'm really hungry. Let's get something on the way home. I don't think about things like that when I'm playing. It transforms me, transposes me into another reality kind of thing. I'm concentrating almost exclusively on the music. And if I'm doing a song, I'm singing, then I'm immersed in what's the next verse and am I going to sing it or not? But no, nothing else matters. It would take something really dramatic for me to lose that concentration. I do not know how badly the bass is weighing on my shoulder until it's over and I put it down and I think, wow, I'm really getting too old for this. That thing weighs 20 pounds.
So you really get into the zone.
That's the best way of putting it. I'm in a zone. Absolutely.
Yeah. And do you think that music has had a positive influence on your life? And
why? For me personally, a positive influence. It wasn't positive for my father. He was so happy to see me get a real job. But as far as all the relatives and mother, she was just as happy to see me playing bass or piano or whatever I wanted to do. My only regret, and it's a big regret, was that I didn't stick with and immerse myself in at least the first instrument. If I'd have stuck with piano, I could have done a lot more. I'm not denigrating the bass, but it has its part. The piano has another part. And at times I miss that. And I regret, even at the age of 5 or 6, telling my mom, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to practice a half hour a day. Back then it was an hour. And that was a lifetime to a 6-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only regret, that I did not really understand the importance of being good on one instrument. Instead, I played drums, I played bongos and conga drums, I play harmonica, I play upright bass, I play electric bass, all good enough to be in a band, but not really at the point where a studio is going to call me.
Right.
Yeah, I love listening to Charlie McCoy play harmonica. Can I play harmonica like that? No. If I practiced, could I? Good idea. Probably would come closer. But I also want to make sure the garden is not going to get frozen and you know, everything's taken care of at the house, and I got maintenance to do on the car, and the pastor wants new music for Sunday morning. Things get in the way.
Yeah. So as a choir director, this is something that comes up whenever I do talk about what music does for you. A lot of the other music artists / singers have mentioned, and these are people who are releasing music. So they've mentioned, like, I hope that a piece that I've written will connect with somebody. And a lot of what I hear from all of them is, generally speaking, just a connection, you know, with other people, or maybe a connection with their own mood. Do you experience, it sounds like you do, by saying that you go into the zone. That sounds to me like it's connecting with deep inside you.
That's a good question, and I'm going to give you kind of a surprising answer, I think. If you're composing music, you're not necessarily, I hope, maybe, that you're not composing it for me or the choir or for anybody out there in the ethereal world. You're composing it for you. Glenn Miller had no idea In the Mood was going to be a hit. In fact, the first time it was played, they kind of booed him off the stage. I mean, they didn't boo him off the stage, but they thought, what is that?
Right.
You know, it was a completely different sound. And it was strange to a lot of people because they were used to Paul Whiteman and the orchestra, or Lawrence Welk, for that matter. And along comes this really almost rock and rollish type big band music. That's a very poor assumption of analogy, but that, you know what I mean. So did Handel do the Messiah specifically for the Pope or the audience listening? I don't think so. I think he did it for himself. He thought, I like this melody. Mozart's fugue, did he really think they would all be played at funerals? But yeah, no, he did it for himself.
Right.
And the composers, well, today, I think there's more arrangers than there are composers. They're taking old songs and redoing them in a different way. Composers are, well, except in pop music, rock, they're few and far between as far as the popular music goes. But when you're talking about rock, yeah, there's a composer on every street corner in rock and roll. And every band, every successful band, whether they be grunge or hip hop or straight rock, they all have composers, they think. I mean, half the songs the Beatles did were composed for them. It was a nice melody, and George Harrison says, I can write lyrics to that. And they make what they think is a nice song. Boom. You got the album Help, which Gorilla, as far as the public was concerned. And I had another thought in my mind, but the train passed the tracks. So, yeah, I think that you need to compose whatever you're composing for yourself first.
Yeah.
And I mean, and see if it makes a grade elsewhere.
Maybe I didn't say the question clearly enough, but like a lot of what they have said is that what they write, what they sing, you know, even if it's just somebody doing covers, whatever, that it's connecting to their soul, their mood, whether it be something really extremely happy, really extremely sad, depressed, whatever. And they create that piece out of that for their own kind of release, you know, to let go of the emotions and put it into music. And their hope is, after it's done, and not with that in mind as they're composing, but their hope afterwards is, I'm going to release it in hopes that I can help somebody else.
Yeah.
In that position, in that mood.
There's all kinds of motives, and that certainly is a major one. I was just thinking that, for instance, Dolly Parton wrote I'll Always Love You, and not too many people know that. Well, they probably do now, why she wrote that. It was to say goodbye to her boss, because she was tired of being the second fiddle to who she was working with at the time. And would you believe his name skips my mind? I can't think of his name. But he was in control of her, and he did everything that she was singing. Every note was dictated by him. Mm-hmm. So she wanted to break out on her own. Mm-hmm. So in his office, she had just scratched out this song and had the melody in her mind and sang it to him as she was closing the door and saying, "I'm gone. I quit. That's it." But yeah, she wrote that song just for him, and look what happened. It's her signature song now. It's sung every night at Dollywood in Tennessee, Gatlinburg. Whitney Houston made it a monster hit. And every karaoke wannabe tries to sing it at the local bar, I suppose. Yeah, it was written for an entirely different purpose. Had no idea it was going to be a mega hit.
Right.
Mega hit.
Right. This episode is brought to you by The Shop.
Are you wanting a haircut, trim, or just a fresh new look in general? Look no further than The Shop. Located in Lehigh Acres, Florida, their friendly and chill atmosphere makes you feel right at home while getting your favorite hairstyle that suits you. Check them out on Google today, that's DASHOP, for more information and see what they can do for you. The Shop is a proud supporter of The Real Paul Show.
We now return you to the interview. And I'll move on to the third question. Where do you see music taking you, and where would you like it to take you?
I'm 77 years old. Where's it going to take me? I'm just glad that I can get out and play still, because it is it's something that I certainly enjoy doing, entertaining. I would probably sing more at church, except that I don't want to look like I'm hogging the microphone kind of thing, just because I'm the director. I look forward to growing the choir back to that 20-25 number. I think that's a good number. I look forward to external stuff, like trying to figure out how to get a better sound on our microphones here so that we can put our choir on Facebook. Right now, I'm really unhappy with the quality of sound. The microphones are as such when where they are, and I can't see anything different at this point in time, but they pick up just 2 or 3 of the people up close, and that's all you hear. And sometimes that's not what I want to hear.
Right.
And as long as I can do that, what I've already told the pastor, do you want an 80-year-old choir director in here? And yet the nominating committee is not looking for anybody. I guess they figure I'm going to last. But I got a point at a church council meeting. I pointed out, hey, I'm a diabetic with a heart condition, and I'm 78 years old, coming up on 78. What's your plan for me? Just stay where you are. Okay, I'm doing things that I love to do, and sometimes it gets frustrating, but bless our hearts, I don't expect church choirs to be all graduates of Juilliard, so we have to woodshed a little bit on some of the harder pieces that we do, note by note by note, and the effort there is sometimes lost because go a week without looking at it again, and you have to go back and start at the beginning, note by note by note. Okay, that's just part of the job. As long as I can do that, what am I looking forward to? Wow. I was talking with Glenda this morning when getting out of bed. Golly, if everybody knew just how hard it was to get to the kitchen. Now, after a night of playing, I carry around a 100-pound amplifier that I have to lift into the car. I've got the guitar, I've got the bongos, congos, $1,000 worth of harmonicas, music stands, and all of the things that you have to use to connect all that stuff in a canvas bag that weighs another 20 pounds. And I have to carry all that in and then carry it all the way out after playing 2 hours with that 20-pound bass hanging around my neck. And for the most part, I'm standing up. I don't get to sit down a whole lot. But I don't know that until I get home and I hit the couch and I'm thinking, oh God, what am I doing? How can I continue to do this? Okay, overnight the body reclaims and I'm refreshed and I'm here today to work on some more stuff. So, and maybe I'll get time to go home and practice later.
Yeah. So you have a passion and a drive that supersedes the temporary aches and pains.
I see nothing that's going to get in the way. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Praise the Lord. Awesome. God, even Glenda was saying, do you realize how many 78-year-old people in our church have problems that we don't? And I thought, yeah, I know. That's for sure. With all of our back histories and just getting over COVID. Yeah, we're really fortunate. We're really blessed. The fact that we can get up and take a walk for a mile and I can spend a couple of hours in the kitchen cooking, this is all a blessing. Mm-hmm. And then the clock turns and it says, oh, I got to get to the gig. This Thursday, we're playing again at Leo's French Toast out on Highway 80. We'll be outside. The temperature will be fine in the low 80s. The food's good. The music's better. Leo might take offense to that, but the food is good.
You're unique in that in today's day and age, you don't have internet. You're not on a lot of social media. So you're not posting a lot of your music or anything like that. But let me
Who wants to hear a tuba player play solo?
Let me catch you up to speed. So on TikTok, on Instagram, I don't know if it's so much on YouTube. It might be. I haven't really gotten big enough to actually be attacked by trolls, is what we call them. Mm-hmm. And trolls are people that come in on like TikTok and you've put a singing video up that you've worked hard at and you sing your heart out, and the troll is just somebody who's sitting in his mother's basement somewhere eating Cheetos and drinking Mountain Dew, and he thinks it's funny to throw in some discouraging words on the comments of your video.
Well, that's the person who never learned what a diatonic scale is or is probably tone deaf to begin with. And if he is a music critic, then he has never played an instrument, because the first thing, there is a group that I belong to of harmonica players. Mm-hmm. The attitude is almost universal in that no matter how much better you could have done, if you had the occasion to say something, then make it always positive. Mm-hmm. Because at one time or another, we were there. Right. And if somebody doesn't know the difference between a major and a minor chord, that's not their fault. It's just the fact that somebody has never taught them, or they're not that far along in their own education. It has nothing to do with their potential musical ability. I saw something the other day that caught my attention. The guy said, if you suck at playing trumpet, that's probably why. Okay, that would be considered a troll, but it's humorous because everybody knows a trumpet player blows. Right. The same thing could be said about a harmonica. If you suck at playing harmonica, then you're playing the blues, because everything on the blues scale on what they call cross harp on a diatonic harmonica is played mostly drawing in, not blowing out. Yeah. So, to pay attention to the critics like that, it's useless to waste effort and energy on something like that. And it should do only one thing, and that is to say, okay, maybe if 12 people said, or my mentor said that we need to work on this phrasing, we need to work on this scale, we need to work on whatever, then you take it to heart and say, okay, I can do better. Right. Practice. I have, for whatever the reason, I've got 100 different cliche sayings that would benefit the moment we're talking about right now, and none of them come to mind. But
I find it funny that one lady on TikTok, she had so many trolls because she had grown fairly big. So she had a plethora of troll comment, just mixed in, of course, with everybody else complimenting her music, and she was a great voice, great musician, great composer. But what she did one day is she decided, let's take every single troll comment, arrange it so it kind of makes sense, and make those the lyrics to a song.
Yeah, sure. Good idea.
And she sang that song on TikTok. Not only did she sing it on TikTok, she went to AGT with it.
All right. That counts. Wherever you get the inspiration,
right?
That inspiration comes in so many areas. Whether you want to quit a job and leave a partner, or deal with the trolls, it's again the. I'm sure when my band plays, or the band that I'm in plays, that we don't please everybody, but we do enough of a variety that somebody's going to hear something they want. Mm-hmm. And that includes gospel. I forgot to mention gospel. We did a lot of gospel last night. Mm-hmm. But we've never had somebody come up and say, "You guys suck."
Right, right. No, it doesn't happen in real life.
It doesn't happen in real life. But if they can remain anonymous, maybe some people will do it. But again, it has to be taken, I think, not only a grain of salt, but with a pound of salt.
I mean, that in itself says something.
Yeah.
That it has to be anonymous.
Yeah.
It's because they're behind a shield. They're not worried about what they say. They don't care what they say.
They can't play, they can't sing, they can't write.
Right.
But they don't like what you're doing. So turn the dial.
Right? Scroll on.
That's exactly right. Scroll on. Yeah.
If you were to talk to a struggling musician, maybe just starting out, but they're putting themselves out there,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of times, a lot of people look at the numbers. I started looking at the numbers in 2021, and towards the end of 2021, got the revelation of, I'm losing my enjoyment in my music because I'm looking at the number. So I want that back where I enjoy what I do. And I don't really care. I mean, I care to put out quality, but I don't really care if it's not everybody's cup of tea.
There you go. And that's where it should be. Yeah.
So, and especially in my realm, because I'm doing more like stuff you don't really hear. I mean, you hear stuff similar to my stuff in like the hippie realm. The different instruments I have are utilized in like meditation music and things like that. So my question was like, what advice would you have for somebody who is in that phase where they're out there, but they're not moving as fast as they want to?
Wow.
In their mind, at least.
I've got some pretty strong opinions about that. Again, every week I have to figure out what music we're going to sing, in not just the choir, but the congregation. How many weeks out of the year do you think anybody comes up to me and says, "You need to do something different"? How many weeks?
Out of the year?
Yeah. How many Sundays or Wednesdays?
You mean like once you get something planned, they say?
Once we do last week's music. How many weeks on any, let me just say, every week I have to pick out at least 7 pieces of music for the congregation. Calls to worship and congregational hymns. I don't touch the invitational hymns. I leave that up to the pastor and Ryan. Every week, somebody has something to say out of our congregation of 130, 150. Even my own wife. We need to do some different hymns. I haven't repeated a hymn in 3 months. Okay, so she goes to the hymn book and starts checking off all the hymns she wants to do. Okay, so I guess the bottom line is you can't please everybody.
Right.
And I don't know how many suggestions the pastor gets, but I know that everybody's got an opinion. You're not going to please everybody. What you should do is do what you do best and work on improving that. To the point where what did the fellow tell me the other day? You don't practice until you can play it. You play it until you can't play it wrong.
I like that.
That's what you should be doing. And when it goes to variety or wherever, and they say, well, this was great, mediocre, not going to make it on Broadway, doesn't mean a thing, because the next audience will be just exactly the opposite. It's because there's different people out there. We play to a different crowd at the same restaurant every week, but we do pretty much overall the same music. I'm still going to sing Long Tall Texan because that just seems to make people smile. We're still going to do I'll Fly Away because universally everybody who's ever been in church wants to hear that song. Am I going to impress anybody by anything else? I don't know. But I try and do my best, and the band tries to play its best so that next 3.5 minutes is worth listening to from somebody. Mm-hmm. If they don't like it, well, wait for the next song. It's different. And we try, like I said, not to practice until we play it well. We practice until we can't make a mistake. That's what that's what the goal should be. Mm-hmm. When you can do it without thinking,
right?
That it just comes.
Right. Yeah. All right.
If I'm talking to encouraging musicians, and I sounded any negative today, I didn't want to be. Certainly not in that mode. I would.
Don't think so. Sounded good.
I would encourage, anybody who has a desire to do something musically, whether it's sing, play an instrument, beat a drum, it's a musical instrument. Whatever the case may be. There are limitations. I couldn't play a reed instrument because my teeth are not perfect. Mm-hmm. Right now I'm working on trombone, actually. Valve trombone, because the fingerings are the same as tuba. Mm-hmm. I just have to strengthen the embouchure, the muscles around the mouth. I would like to think that I'm learning someplace about directing a choir every week, learning something new, trying to keep my temper from getting out of hand, and make it fun, make it enjoyable, and people wanting to learn the music that we're doing even more, and make it enjoyable, not only for them, but as a blessing to the congregation, and certainly as praiseworthy to God. Let me just end with this. Talent is in your genes. That's 10% of your musical ability. The other 90%, music, playing an instrument, any kind of instrument, or singing, the voice is an instrument, is physical. It's repetitive. You have to do it over and over and over again, whether it's strengthening muscles in your throat and mouth, or learning the multiple combinations of a 3-ring trumpet, the valves, beating the drums. Are you going to use 2 sticks? Are they going to be solid? Are they going to be bamboo? Can you keep a rhythm? Are you ambidextrous? Can your feet move in the opposite directions and still keep time? All these things relate to the inward talent, the talent that gene that comes along saying that note's higher than that note. Mm-hmm. Let's start with the fact that I'm not tone deaf, as sometimes I think some folks are. But, okay, that just means they haven't got the music gene. They will never play an instrument. I truly regret that for them, because they are missing out on fun. Mm-hmm. Just sitting on the back porch and plucking a guitar is to some people as good as sitting in Carnegie Hall. But if you don't practice, you won't play. Mm-hmm. So if you have the talent and you're not tone deaf, then all you have to do is the work. Right. That's it. Get out there and work.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ron, for being on the show.
It was a blast. I didn't mean to tie up the first half hour with my life story on the aircraft carriers.
This week on Focus, we have Sarah, who is going to be in an interview in the next few weeks. She has a new release, as does Constant, and as does Natalie. So take a listen. Sarah's new release is going to be coming out very soon. She'll tell you about it in her segment. The other 2 releases have already come out, and you can find them on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to music at. Enjoy these segments.
This is how I... Hello to all of Paul's listeners. Thank you so much for listening. This is Sarah Toll, and I've got a song release to tell you about. I've got a song. It's coming out on March 18th. It's called Like It or Not. It goes, like it or not, this is how I look naked. It's a fun, upbeat song, and it's about body acceptance, which is a journey for all of us. And this song is not just about female bodies, curvy bodies. It's not about body weight. It's for all bodies, all ages, colors, sizes, abilities, genders, you name it. This song is about giving ourselves the freedom to not care, to just forget ourselves for a moment and simply enjoy being in our bodies. So I hope you do like it or not. Let me know what you think. Bottom to top, this body's on.
Hey, my name is Constant, and I am excited to announce that my latest EP, Demeter's Daughter, is available now on all music platforms. Go stream it on Spotify or Apple Music. It's so dear to my heart. Every song is about my growth and journey as an artist, and I hope to take you on that journey with me.
I'd like to write you a song so you can know you did wrong. I'd like to air out my laundry.
Is this love? Is this love?
Hi, I'm Natalie Miranda and you're listening to my new single, Is This Love, out now everywhere. If you sign up to my website, nataliemiranda.com, you'll get a free download of the song. How cool is that? Hope you like it.
Fascinate me in a way that I just can't define. And I've been here 100,000 times. Always the same.
That concludes this episode of The Real Paul Show. I hope to see you next week. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to yet another episode of The Real Paul Show. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss an episode. And remember, do what you love with no regrets.